2025 for the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union Policy Drafting Committee. I'll like to go over the agenda, and if we have no changes to it, we'll proceed in the order in which is outlined on the public agenda. We're live again on Zoom, and we're in presence in person. The agenda is public comments, minutes from September the 11th, which we would. The next policy we have, the first policy is 5080 dress code. Item 4, 5120 concussion management. Item number 5, 5084 personal use of wireless communications. And then number 6 is 5010, a review on Title I Parent Involvement Compact. And we have the tracking sheet. And for FYI, we have 5080 dress code administration regs update. And we have B 5185 anaphylaxis administrative regs update. Future considerations at the bottom, 5175 and 4100, 6230 and 5156. Next meeting is projected to be December the 11th. Are there any changes, omissions, and additions to the agenda that was read? Seeing none and hearing none, then we will proceed with the agenda. The first item on the agenda is public comments. Seeing and hearing no public comments, none. Item 2 is a minutes from September the 11th. Policy Committee meeting. We have a motion for that. We have a motion from you on the minutes. Yes. And
yes.
I'll second it. Robert rules when we're this small, we don't need one. So we have minutes from September 11th, 23, and any comments concerning any of the minutes? Don't see any. And so move to accept the minutes as presented September 11th.
Yes.
Second. Okay. The next item on the agenda is dress code, and that's policy number 5080. This policy was starting to go around, and there was some questions coming from BSD concerning dress code, I think, and they wanted to have ask, could they get the dress code administrative regs in place? But they wanted and what questions were being asked. We've not gotten anything concrete from anybody, no more than just a question. So I'm not sure whether I need to read the major highlights part of that or not. Anyone think I should go through line item 9 through 16 just again? Learning that there is no one here that had questions or anything about the policy with the regs. Seeing none, then I won't go through, read that. We'll move on with this policy. This policy was up for, and it's been through, I got same date on. So this would be the elementary school district was still needed to be warning for that on his and then we'll be able to go to out for adoption at the same time. Okay. Next item on the list was policy 5120, concussion management, proposed draft document. This is a new document that is now in place to summarize and formalize the actions of the district in reference to all the other things that take place in the Vermont Principals Association and all the sports arenas in terms of the correct protocol for concussion. There was a gap out there when a person can automatically acquire a concussion at home and come to school and have an issue, and someone should be able to recognize that. They can be at school and just have an issue and have a concussion. So the treatment is the same. And so that's what this policy is, trying to fill the gaps for the places that was being received by athletes on the fields and in the rooms and so forth. Now we got a total package here. The applicability of this policy, I'll start to do one particular part. This policy provide context and clarity for students who are experiencing concussions. This policy, students who, school personnel, personal guardians in the following ways: identifying concussions, managing students, and returning to learning in the cases where student athletes return to play. What the policy is saying, that we want to give those same students that are found in the contents other than being an athlete the same kind of treatment. They need to slowly do things in the classroom to work their way back up to a full learning ability in terms of class workload and so forth. So that's basically what the policy applies to. If there are any questions with the rest of this policy applicability, definitions of a concussion is on here. For the public purposes, do I need to do anything?
We have lead nurse Ashley walking here too. I didn't know if she wanted to add anything.
No, I think it's just important to remember that we want to make sure that students are cleared to return to the classroom before they return to play. And I think that's been our biggest issue with not having a policy to support that, is students jump back into athletics much sooner than they are ready to do and aren't able to manage a full day at school. So this is going to help provide some support for community members as well.
Great. This is great. This gives you a total picture of everybody.
So this applies not just to whether or not it's an athlete, but school as well as the sports.
Mhm.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep, everybody would fall under this, including elementary schools. So return to play with them would look like recess and PE, versus middle school and high school, it would be more athletes and PE to return to play.
We one of the words that was, it's the intramural and interscholastic things that were left out there. So students that participate in intramural sports and play at the school are covered by the same protocol.
So what happens if the parents, some, for whatever reason, won't or can't access a physician to get clearance to come back to school?
Well, nobody's saying that they can't come back to school. It's
Okay.
we have to have a protocol for it. So we don't return to play until you've completed return to learning. So the
That's
first
right.
step is classroom accommodations, getting them back into school. Then you start the returning to play. Whereas in the past, athletes and kids were jumping back into sports, but weren't able to tolerate more than 2 hours a day of school. And that doesn't really make sense.
Okay. It's not that the doc has to sign off about coming back to school.
No, not necessarily. I mean, if
Once
they have
they-
the concussion, we want them to have a plan for returning to school. Oftentimes, our kids are seen in the emergency room or express care, and they will provide a short-term plan with follow-up at your pediatrician. And then this is going to provide us with the ability to say we need to follow up with those pediatricians, because concussions are managed on a weekly basis, so they really get seen every week until they are completely cleared. So this is going to help facilitate things with community practitioners as well, to make sure that we can say we need to get you to the doctor, we need to get follow-up done.
Right. And so what happens if the parents don't, or the guardians
Well,
don't?
the policy, if you have a concussion, the parent can't just say you're gonna be back in. We got a program that you gotta follow. The doctors at the hospital or wherever just can't say, okay, if you've been diagnosed with a concussion, you need to go through the concussion. You will need to go through the proper concussion protocol. And that is, it's a gradual working your way back into the school environment, as opposed to saying, I got a full load of classes. I may be taking a part of the class, a section of the class, getting help in some other kind of ways, getting observed by normally if they had the athletes, our trainers verify that these individuals have performed and met all the requirements before they're able to be returning to full aspects of the school. And I don't know where anybody would really want, well, I shouldn't say that they should want it, but this is pretty serious stuff when it comes to a concussion. If you have one and you continue on, you can actually damage yourself as bad or worse than it was the first time. So they will be going through those protocols. And so I don't know that anyone saying now that they're not wanting to go through and proceed with the proper reentry protocol procedures. And this was to make it clear to everybody. Any other discussions? I don't hear anything. I'm just looking on the back. The last part of that is return to learn steps and return to play. So we have something down here if they need to see that on the backside. The fact that we put return to learn before return to play, because that's what it's all about, student learning.
This can go and start being warned.
Right.
Okay.
I would recommend that we go on and move for warning. Next policy on is 5084, is personal use of wireless communication. And there was some questions or comments in about this particular policy, but there were no actual follow-ups concerning those questions or comments. And it was back on saying, if you had those questions, we were back here to discuss it. We're looking for it, so we don't have any of it. I thought it was pretty straightforward when we talked about the wireless communication, the policy pieces. So, are there any questions from anyone else concerning the wireless communication policy. 5084, and so 5084 is ready to move on to the next step.
It'll start making the rounds for adoption.
That's correct. The next item on the list was item 6, 5010, Title I Parent Environment Compact Annual Review. And who was going to do that, Jim? Or Laura?
It's a document.
Oh.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I thought someone was going to say something. Not, I read through it. We don't.
this is what was presented to SVSU board.
Right.
During all the parent meetings.
So it was back on just to show and indicate that it had been done, as required annually for all of the boards and to the parents and at the school level. And so, Laura had completed that. It was all adopted and that was in 21. So we are now ready to proceed on. If no one else have any questions about that. The annuals, okay. 5010, she did include a Title I Parent Involvement Compact Annual Summer Sharing at the 10/25/23 for SVSU meeting. And followed through the review of what took place. So that document just talked about what took place over a time of period, over a sequence of events to this date, and what questions or feedback that was there. I don't know that anyone had any, and we definitely didn't get any back here. So we'll be moving this document on to the next phase.
It was just a more informational.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to go anywhere.
We are now up to the tracking sheet. It's the document that shows where everything is in the process. I shared this information at the annual school board meeting. They thought it was just great. Those schools that have multiple school districts and an SU, that they had a document that went around to show where everybody was in terms of the warning and adopting process. And so they were pretty intrigued about having a document like that in the process. So
It definitely helps to keep things straight
yeah.
and to track everything.
And that's all I need is to make sure that that's done.
So the tracking sheet is students who are homeless. It's posted on the website. It was one of the highlighted red events. On here we had dress code, the SVU ESD didn't take any actions on the warning on 1010, and there were no comments still here, so they will be going back to that board. They resolved the issues that they may have had, but they didn't forward anything, so comments or changes. And then, as usual, it'll work its way to Sandgate. And when they have their meetings, it'll be on their docket for the review. That was dress code. And so we are down to the land of Alexis. No required Vermont state law, and then concussion management was no in terms of that. So that's the items that we were preparing to discuss tonight. We still have several items that are out.
That's the only change, sir.
The only change on,
The the admin regs for anaphylaxis.
yes, they were on for FYI.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those, we do have, just for FYI, 5080 dress code administrative regs update. And that was in the packet and will be posted as soon as the policy has been fully adopted. And then we have FYI 5185 anaphylaxis administrative regs. It's showing what it had for an update, and that would be in place as soon as policy go through its normal process of adoption. Items number 9, a future consideration. We have still 5175 possession, sale, and distribution and use of illegal substance. B, 4100 alcohol and drug-free workplace, curriculum-based field trips, and we have, which is 6230, student nutrition and wellness policy. This is a new update to the Vermont School Board Association, and we have a time frame that we're working on for 2025 for this particular policy. There were some comments I made at the annual school board conference concerning some of the items that are in the nutritional policy. And the question that I raised concerning that was that we have joining technical school districts onto regular school districts, and they were not really addressing the changes that affect them when it comes to food and their requirement to have a culinary program, sell a store, and do some things. And they needed to be proactive in terms of the policy when it comes from the school board association to make sure that it has a knowledge and address certain issues with the technical schools along that line. They thought that was right on here for the schools that have joining schools and independent, so that they won't be in violation or anything. So we got a little while, but we're going to work all year on the changes. That was D. And then the next meeting, if there are no other policies, the next meeting is scheduled for December the 11th. We do have some others that were out that Nina was going to look at, and didn't have a chance to do all of those. And we have our new coordinator for equity was looking at some to make sure that everything was cozy and to be familiar with them is what we were trying to give some chances and opportunity to do. Anything else? That's all that I have that was planned. The only thing that I'd be asking all of them, if they're gonna watch the CAT TV, if they need to read the policies if they wasn't here, and make sure that they're familiar enough that when they go back to their board that they can talk and address the issues that covered here. If not, then I'm going to ask that we adjourn. Any objections to that?
I want to stay.
You want to stay? All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.